Hello and welcome to Dancer Support Mission by Sabine Chalon for Shine Your Light. We have a new episode of Dancer to Dancer today, Words of Wisdom. And this platform was created to meet the person behind the dancer and share with you all not only the highlights of someone's career, but also the challenges behind the scenes. Truly, my wish is to bring healing into the dance world, dancing to heal, healing to dance, one artist at a time and one personal story at a time. I do believe that storytelling gives us an opportunity to learn from another person's experience, and it can shape, strengthen, or challenge our opinions and values. Hopefully, this will allow you to embark or reflect on your own personal healing journey, inspired by others' experiences. And of course, if you find those interviews valuable and interesting, please share them with your friends. So today I am delighted to welcome Jon Ole Olstad. Jon, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much.
So Jon, I found you on internet,
Yes,
I
you did.
remember I was fascinated by that video that of you teaching in with Henny Jurrien's Stichting, and I was like, I love that guy, how he's moving. So I thought, well, that would be a great candidate for an interview, and we made it work.
Yes.
Thank you for responding to my request.
Yes, no problem. I also found, because I also had watched some of your interviews on YouTube before, and yeah, I feel very honored and grateful that you wanted to do a little talk with me.
Great. So let's start, without waiting. I mean, I would like to know when you started dancing, why you started dancing, and when was the turning point where you thought, oh, that could be a career for me?
Yeah, so I come from Norway. I come from a very, very small town, 4 hours north of Oslo. It's 5,000 people living there. It's in the mountains. It's yeah, quite well, not isolated, but it's a very small town in Norway. And as Norwegian culture, it's the hobbies and what you do on your free time is quite evolved around sports. So dance was not something that came into my life in an early stage, at an early stage. I was a very active child, so I did skiing, I did snowboarding, I played handball, I was in the forest the whole day walking with my dog or building tree cabins or, yeah, very active child. But I always remember, or I remember that whenever there would be the few times there would maybe be dance on TV, I would be very fascinated by it. Or whenever we would maybe do some sort of dance lessons in my school, maybe we learned a little Polonaise or something like that. I always enjoy the aspect of moving, and especially moving to music. And I remember my neighbor, she had an old VHS cassette of Dirty Dancing. And I think I watched that movie like monthly or weekly. I would borrow the VHS cassette so much that the tape would kind of be a bit destroyed because I kept watching it over and over. So in my little hometown, there was no dance school, so there was no formal education of ballet or street dancing or kind of anything. There would come some like dance courses, maybe a little bit of folk dance, or maybe they did some Irish river dance or something. And sometimes maybe I would take a little course, like a week or a weekend when I was 12, 13, but really nothing formal. But I was always active and always fascinated by dance. And then what was really nice, though, in my hometown, there was a group that arranged like a musical amateur show for the local teenagers from all the different province, and then they would all come together and they would do like a musical performance. And when I was 15, I was old enough to participate in that. And that was kind of the big aha moment for me when I could when I could learn dance steps, I could perform them to music, and I could go on stage and express something that was more than just about me. And so then I was 15, and then I was like, okay, there is something here. Then some of the older teenagers that were part of this performance from another city, they were students at a high school where they had like a performing arts program. And some of them said, hey, John, maybe you should apply for this performing arts program. And because we see that you love to dance and all of this. And I said, well, for sure, there's no way I will get in. I'm not good, or I just like to do this dancing thing. And they're like, well, you should try to audition for that program. So I was 15, and it was the first time I think I ever saw or did ballet. It was the first time I ever saw or did a jazz class at the audition. So it was quite like a Billy Elliot thing, where I would come into the room and I would see these girls with tights, and they would hold their hands at the bar and they would swing their legs like on cloche. And I was thinking, why are they swinging their leg like this? And some of them were wearing, the leotard, and then they had the leggings, and then they had like that little shorts over the leggings. And I remember so strongly thinking, why do they have like the underwear over the leggings? So for me, I'm like, I was completely fresh, completely blank. And, the teacher, we were doing pliés and whatnot, and I was just mimicking. And in the jazz class, we were doing some chassé step, grand jeté, and I could not, to save my life, I could not coordinate anything. So I knew that there would be no chance that I would get in. And then there was a letter in the post a few weeks after, and it said, you're accepted. And I think from that moment, when I got that letter, it was like, okay, now we're gonna. There was something just clicked. There's nothing else I want to do. It's just this. And my mom asked me, because then I had to move from home. It was only still 3 hours, but I had to move. And my mom said, she's like, okay, so now you want to dance? I said, yeah. And she's like, okay, you can do whatever you want, just do it good. Just, you have to do your best, do whatever you want, but you have to do your best. Nothing like pressure, but I was like, okay, I'm really going to do this. And later I've asked, and I had some fantastic teachers at that program. We started doing ballet, contemporary, and jazz. Not a lot of classes, but still something. Phenomenal teachers. And of course, a few years later, I asked, I mean, how did I get in? And they said, well, first of all, you were a boy. We wanted boys. And they said, we just saw how much you wanted it. And we saw how frustrated you would get in every moment that you didn't get any of the steps. And they're like, that's the passion we were looking for, that someone realized that they're not at a good level, but that they want to get at a good level. And then they said you had good facilities. So, of course. So then I went 3 years there, and I kind of got an okay foundation. And then I went 3 years to the National Academy of the Arts in Oslo. It's kind of the highest education for dance in Norway, where they have a bachelor program for jazz, a bachelor program for contemporary, and a bachelor program for ballet. And I did the bachelor program for jazz dance. Not kind of like traditional jazz, like, of course, we did some Fosse, some kind of musical theater, but I would call it more technically like contemporary jazz or modern jazz. And again, I've been truly, truly blessed with phenomenal teachers. And I would say that the teachers and the mentors that I've been so fortunate to have, they have been good teachers, but they've also been incredible dancers themselves. So I would learn so much from watching. And so then I went 3 years there.
What would
And
you say, like, as a, as someone who starts quite late, you know, I mean, I know for myself what it is, you know, to feel completely overwhelmed by, you know, the amount of things that you have no idea what it is, you know. First to understand them mentally and then put them into your body. But what would you say was your biggest challenge with that, actually?
Ballet. Ballet.
So
Learning.
ballet?
Well, what about is that I always felt, and it's like a good and a bad thing. I always felt I was 5 steps behind where I should be.
Yeah.
So when I took like my first ballet class at 15, that's very different from someone who started a good quality training at the age of 8 or 9. So I knew from that age, I am behind. And for me to be able to somehow catch up, I need to put in an extra work. So I think the challenge was I knew I was behind, but then that was also my strength that if I'm behind, I'm the only one who can get me forward.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that I had to get forward, and the way that I got forward was I would be the first one in the studio, I would be the last one to leave. I would in high school I would write weekly schedules. On Monday I'm going to stretch 2 hours. On Tuesday I'm going to do these exercises. On Wednesday I'm going to practice these exercises. So I was
organized.
I was organized, and I think it comes from a deep sense of kind of like an extreme passion for movement and dance, and a big desire of this is what I want to do. And when I was graduating from the National Academy of the Arts, and now it's like, okay, you're a professional. Then my mom came again with the question, well, John, what are you going to do if dancing doesn't work out? Do you have a plan B? And I remember so clearly that if I have a plan B, I'm not putting all the effort and attention and detail into making plan A work. And I said, I think because I really want this, then I'm sorry, I'm not even going to consider a plan B. She's like, what if you get injured? I said, I'll deal with it then. It's just plan A. And then I was very lucky that my first professional job, it was a project with the Batsheva company and Ohad Naharin. So it was a 6-month tour all around Sweden performing a piece by Ohad Naharin called Kamuyot, which is a phenomenal piece. And we were performing 6 months for children and teenagers all around Sweden. And we got this incredible depth and diving into the whole Gaga world and improvisation and performing twice a day, touring all over. So that was like my first real professional job. And I was very fortunate because I had a job right after school. And I think it's quite different when the ballet world compared to the contemporary or jazz or the freelance world, because say if you are a student at the Royal Ballet, you have this beautiful trajectory you can have as a student. You can do your whole training at a school. Maybe there is an apprenticeship program. Maybe there is a company that will take you. But somehow, sometimes, and also in Norway, there's not that many dance jobs. And we were not so educated what's around the world. So as a freelancer, I've had months and even years without work. So after I had that beautiful start to my professional career doing that job, I started doing auditions for companies and didn't get hired, didn't get jobs, and really like a rough learning curve. And this was in 2010, 2011, and 12. And there weren't so many in-depth programs of how now there's a lot more focus on mentoring. There's a lot more focusing when you are at an educational program. What are we going to do when you're done?
Yeah.
It's like our school was more like, we will teach you how to dance. Good luck. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the old way, right?
Yes. And so, yeah. And then I did a little, and then I got a job in a musical in Norway, so I did that, and then somehow I managed to. I got a contract with NDT1 in yes in 2012. I somehow managed to get a contract there. That's a very long story, but yeah, I managed to get a contract there, and I was there for 2 years, making many of my dreams come true, working creatively and with these brilliant choreographers, these brilliant creative minds. But at the same time, as it was a beautiful dream come true, an incredible learning experience, it was also very challenging for me.
In which way?
I think it's challenge. I think, well, I know the biggest challenge was being, I think, yeah, 23, 24, and coming into NDT1 without any company experience. Yeah, that was
a wake-up call.
Yeah, it was a wake-up call, and it was a wake-up call that was challenging because I had no experience in that whole world. I knew people in companies, I had seen documentaries, I had read about it, but it's not the same as, I would say it's like being thrown into the Coliseum arena.
That's how I felt.
That's how it felt, yeah. And I didn't have experience and the drilling that they maybe, or that I know that they provide if you go through NDT2. Or if I mean, most of my colleagues that hadn't go through NDT2, they had gone through other professional companies, smaller companies or bigger companies, Australian Ballet, San Francisco Ballet, a regional company in Germany or something. So for me, it was a huge challenge. Also, I mean, as I said before, how I said I felt very behind in NDT1. I definitely felt behind in the refined technical ballet kind of vocabulary. So I would say my strong sides would be my creative side. I could improvise. I could maybe make some material. I could have this. More of my training, more of the contemporary training.
Also that you have in your movement that is quite powerful. I mean, but it's true if you want to
do that and at the same time do a double tour and layer into a double attitude on your end and do a press lift with a girl. So it just it provided me with something I had never felt before, which was extreme anxiousness. Extreme anxiousness going into dance. I also wouldn't say that I had it was also the environment were not it wasn't so holistic maybe. So quite a lot of
no company is holistic.
No, it was quite a lot of this, and so it was a mix between anxiousness and not feeling supported and not having any sort of toolbox to deal with those types of things. So long story short, after 2 years, it's like, no, I can't. This is no, too much angst and not enough joy and not being a sufficient enough worker, not at that quality level that it's required. That whole kind of aspect. And I remember the kind of a big wake-up call. We had a performance in San Francisco, and I was doing this solo in a rehearsal on stage, and I kind of just froze, and choreographers screaming at me like blah 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 blah, what's happening, and me kind of like, whoa, like, okay. And then I spoke with a colleague of mine who she had been a principal dancer in Australian Ballet, and I said, I don't think I can do this anymore. Even if it, like, anymore feels very long, it had been like a year and a half. I said, I really don't think I can anymore. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, it just kind of fell out of me. I said, I don't have any fun.
It's important to realize that.
Yes. And she's like, but John, it's not always fun. And then I remember I said, but I always had fun before. And she's like, oh, okay. And I said, that's it. I started dancing because it made me feel something I'd never felt before. It was so much joy. It was I felt safe in dance. I felt all the things that I suddenly did not feel. And I said, dance is becoming my enemy, and I love it too much for it to happen. So I said, and the director agreed. He's like, "Oh, you're not the type I hired." I said, "Nope, because you saw me doing what I loved, and now you see me." No.
Well, I mean, one needs to fit in those big companies.
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
big machines, and you really have to find your place. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
even in classical company, you have people who come, they principle from somewhere else, and they fall down completely because it depends on the dynamic if it suits
Yeah.
you or not as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So no. So after that, I had to like reconnect with dance, and the way I did that was through teaching. I started and I moved a little bit. Then I did a small project in Rome, and then I started teaching around Norway. I went to America for 3 months. I taught 3 months around the States in LA, San Francisco, and New York. And I had been a lot to New York visiting before. And I was like, I really like this teaching thing. I said, I really like being, it sounds a bit funky though, but I said I enjoy being in charge.
Mhm.
I enjoy planning what I'm going to do that day with dance. I enjoy helping other students. I enjoy bringing joy into the classroom. I enjoy reminding people that dance can be fun. I enjoy uh, facilitating a room where we can have very strong discipline, very good work ethic. We can fail and we can learn through those failures without being screamed at.
This is
So,
so important what you're saying, actually,
yeah,
because it's like when you want to be in charge, I
yeah,
think that would change the whole dynamic in
yeah,
every company if dancers were much more in charge and in charge of their happiness, of their joy, as you
yeah,
say. It's
yeah,
beautiful. Yeah.
yeah. So it really, yeah. So then I was like, okay, we're back. And then because I also had that love for New York and I like to try new things. I applied and I had another friend from Norway who lived in New York and she had gotten this artist visa that took a lot of money and a lot of time with a lawyer and a lot of a
A
lot
lot
of
of
paper.
sweat.
Yeah. So 6 months later, I was done in NDT in July 2014, and in August 2015, I moved to New York. And I lived in New York for 4 years. I was very fortunate, and I was teaching classes, open classes around the city at Steps on Broadway, at Paradise, at Broadway Dance Center, Gibney, and I was also traveling a lot around America, doing the studio work, doing choreography work, and really diving into this work or this world, and then also suddenly starting to also miss being a performer. And I thought that was a healthy type of missing. It meant that I had kind of crawled a bit out of that hole and started developing a bit more how I taught contemporary. And yeah, and then,
I have a question. How
yeah,
did your mom react after NDT?
after it. No, she was, I think as a mom and as a parent, I think one of the things you want for your child is stability.
Yes.
And suddenly, I mean, they had an insane pride knowing that I was in this remarkable and ambitious company. Uh, but we had a coffee in Amsterdam, and I said, "I'm done. I'm done." She's like, and I told her later, a few years, that it was really not good. Yeah, I said it more a few years later. Also, when I had realized that that was really not good. And then yeah, I moved to New York, and then she's like, okay, then do that good. I've always been extremely lucky having very supportive parents. Yeah. And I think as a late bloomer, I think that's been highly appreciated by me. So yeah. So then I lived in New York, had a wonderful life there, and then I moved back again to Europe before Corona to be with my partner, Carlos Luis, who you
That I
also
just
interviewed,
interviewed
that
before.
you just interviewed. Yeah. So then I spent the Corona months first in Norway with my parents, and then from August 2020 till just recently, I was living in Germany, and in Germany I've been again teaching and choreographing for some very beautiful schools and program, and did some dancing work. And now we moved to Copenhagen because my boyfriend now works for Danish Dance Theater, and I'm still freelancing and
So how
yeah,
is that to be a freelancer? I mean, I mean,
challenging.
it's not easy, right? You have to
It's
be really, how do you say, grounded, because you have to go with the flow, and it's not an easy thing to do, right?
No, it's challenging in the way that I have to help, or at least that's my instinct. I have to help as much as I can, facilitating my future and my schedule.
Mhm.
If that means writing interest emails, hello, can I teach for this company? Hello, can I give a workshop for your studio? Like even before I moved to Copenhagen, I had already sent out emails. And I think that's something that the dance profession can become much better at and much more brave in doing. It's very normal in other professions to send interest applications.
Yeah.
Hello, I want to work for this tech company. This is my qualifications. Da, 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 da. In dance, I think we are still a bit like, oh, excuse me, sorry for taking space. Oh, excuse me for knocking on your door.
Well, it's also that doors are not open, like
No,
compared to America or Canada, for example, my experience is that Europe is very closed off. And even if you send things, sometimes nobody even bothers to
yeah,
answer.
nobody even answers.
Mm,
No, so I would say that 75% of the jobs that I have is through me sending interest.
okay.
And if I get an answer, I get an answer. And if I don't get an answer, I don't get an answer. And then it's like, okay, it's like an audition almost. And then being a freelancer, you have to, that's also something I feel I learned in New York. You have to know your value and don't be afraid of knowing your value. And
Mhm.
knowing your value doesn't mean that you're a bit like this. It just means
Ah,
you know what you can provide and provide. I mean, because as a freelancer, you are constantly, or that's how I view it, you're constantly a guest in other people's home. If that's in a company or in a studio or doing a small project or a big project, you are a guest that someone else facilitated for you.
yeah.
So if I want to be, I think it's also as a freelancer, I take and I try always to do better and always to grow in it, also still keeping my integrity, but how can I behave in the best way?
Yeah.
Like be on time, be professional, be responsive when there's an email, be responsible about what's happening in the room, show up with a good energy, show up with a good professionalism. Because if I do a good job, I'm not even how to say, I'm not even secure of getting that job again, maybe in a few months or the next year.
Hmm.
Maybe they had the budget for one workshop. Okay, great. And I did my absolute best, travel 12 hours or whatever. That's not even a safety net that you're going to be hired again.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, as a freelancer, yeah, it takes, yeah, and I constantly have to shift. You have to be like a shapeshifter. I
You have to be in charge of
Yes,
everything.
yes. Yeah, I mean, I am my own. contract.
Impresario.
I do my paperwork. I do my scheduling. I do the tickets. I do my own taxes. I have to train myself. I have to be my own massage therapist. I have to be my own food.
Yeah.
It's not the same as, say, if you're in a company. That's also very challenging, but the schedule is there for you because someone else provided for you. So it's a whole kind of umbrella it's so many hours. I would say for each hour I teach, there's maybe between two, no, say if I teach a workshop for a week, if I go to Italy and I teach a week workshop. For a week workshop, I would say there's between 2 or 4 admin hours. Mm-hmm. And then there's the traveling on top. So there is so much unpaid work to facilitate each paid hour.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you're brave.
I think many freelancers are very brave.
Yeah, I believe that too. Yeah. Days in nature.
But there's also beautiful freedom that comes with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like you to talk a little bit about what you're doing, like dancing in nature, because I've seen that on your page, and I think it's
Yes, I have that was during the Corona. The world was locked down, and I spent a lot of hours hiking in the nature in Norway, where I'm from. I'm from a place where we have like national parks, and it's like a fairy tale beauty. And long story short, I thought, okay, I have to make something here in this city. So I decided to create an outdoor performance because I said, the scenery we have, it's an incredible stage. And I also want to dance more myself. And I know beautiful dancers that I would like to put on stage. So in 2021, we did our first performance of what I have called Dancing in the Wild. And how can I explain it? The setup is that we are it's close to my home where I'm from, where my parents still live. It's a stone quarry where they extract stone. This we call it's like slab stone, so it's kind of like black and red metallic. And they are still taking out stone. It's like marble, when you take out the marble. And they have this ginormous mountains that's made out of the leftovers of the stone. Then they have this massive open craters where they took out the stone. And then you have an incredible view over mountains and lakes. And I mean, it's just quite mind-blowing. But even, I mean, for me that I'm from this area, it's like, whoa. But when I've taken people that's not from there, they go like, where am I? So then the performance is that I also perform in it, and I'm more of this kind of dancing guide. So I guide the audience through a path through this whole stone quarry, and then the audience follow me, and then there's different scenes. It's like a solo or a duet or something. So we are dancing outdoors in nature, and this year was the 4th year we did it, and we did a new performance in a new area, a new route. I have dancers from Norway, from Cuba, from America, from Australia, from Italy. Some people I know personally for many years. Others I've admired and take them in. And some people are students that I've met. Like this year, we had an Italian dancer that I met when I made a piece for his class when he was a student at the Tanz Academy Zurich. Because we work outdoors. We don't have a lot of time. We work in any kind of weather. We work, it's not like we have a beautiful stage floor. We dance in sand, in stones, in rain, in cold, in wind, it's not for the, how to say, it's for a specific type of dancer. Yeah. So for example, this dancer, an Italian dancer called Giuseppe, I already knew from working with him making a piece on his class and working with him, I knew that he would not be afraid of the challenge of pushing the body. Of course, everything has a lot of safety, but pushing the body, finding answers to problems. So it's an incredible experience performing out in the wild, in nature.
Yeah, I saw beautiful photos. It was
Yes, thank you. Yeah, pole dancing in the wild if people are interested. And yeah, there is something very special about dancing outside. You judge far less, you become so much more emotional, and you dance in a very specific way because you have to dance with your full physicality, your full mental aspect, your full emotional quality, because the space around you is so incredibly wide that it can either swallow you or it can
frame you.
Yeah, exactly, complement you.
Wow, that's beautiful. I really encourage people to go and look at the pictures on your, Facebook or Instagram, because it's really beautiful.
Thank
Okay,
you.
we have to wrap this up. So I would like to ask you, if you have one advice to give to a young dancer, what would that be?
Young advice. I think I actually read this quote the other day and it really resonated with me. It was, I have to repeat in my, yeah, to be able to shine in front of everyone, you have to do the work in front of no one.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, that is, I think, with the world we live in, the culture that we live in, everything is so fast paced.
Yeah, yeah.
And young students of today, they want results, ta 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 ta
And
ta.
instant gratitude.
Instant gratification, instant result, instant validation, instant everything. And I see, not to like, well, I see a tendency, because I also teach a lot in universities, in studios, different levels, different countries, and something that has really gone missing is the art of practice. The art of practice barely exists.
Homework. I mean, first you're your own tool and you have to sculpt it yourself. So go for it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I come into a studio and you know it's so easy to be wrapped up. It's so easy to be there. It's like 5 minutes between class and rehearsal. Practice what you did in class.
I know.
5 or 15 minutes after rehearsal, it's like it's just leave. No, stay. Just 5 minutes or 50 minutes of practice. It's like it can have so much.
When it's also coming back to yourself and to
Yeah.
an assessment. Okay, how do
Yeah.
I go further? So
Yeah, and then you get an incredible discipline. You get a discipline, and then that gives you more of that result. Discipline gives you result, and then it's like to be able to prove yourself or get praise in front of everyone. Which I mean, as an artist, you also want to get that, but do the work in front of no one. Do it when no one is watching. Be the one that's stands in another studio and practice on a Sunday or something, and because that's the only way that worked for me. And
and I have to cut it because it's going to cut soon. So
yes,
I want to thank you very much for
thank you so much for having me.
and well, good luck for many, many contracts and opportunities.
I hope so.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Bye.